Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. I hope you're having a great day. Let's take a quick look here at Bitcoin, see what's going on. Happy Green Friday here for a change. It's kind of nice to see this. And I want to specify something too, because I talked to my community about this here just a moment ago. They're asking, why I might be considering a short going into this weekend, or more importantly, shorting this weekend after we see things continue higher. Just because we've statistically seen, I think it's 9 out of 10 weekends have been red. I'll get a chart together so you guys can see that. I'll post that a little bit later. I don't want to take up all your time, but the key takeaway here is that we've seen most weekends so far this year have been red, and consistently with that, most of those the red weekends rather, start with a green Friday. And it's kind of a very, very misleading situation here. Like for example, yesterday with the price action pulled down here, there's like a standard power of 3, where you see the price action work itself into a channel, right? Then it works itself into a smaller, lower channel, getting people to start breaking short. And then, what do you know? We get this third expansive wave up, and the price action destroys any late shorts. So this is kind of just, I wouldn't say standard, but it makes sense. We're seeing this coming into a Friday. So once that CME gap is filled, my personal bias for the moment is to consider shorting into the weekend. I'm not saying shorting right now, but in general, if we do see that $86,000 price point and that CME gap is filled, especially on a low volume pump, I think we're going to probably want to consider shorting this weekend, just based on how terrible it is to hold longs over the weekend. I've been a statistic as part of that too, so I'm not perfect by any stretch. I think we had to close out 2 trades this month, our only 2 red trades so far that have. We had to close out essentially early. Good news is we're securing some nice profits on Bitcoin, Near Protocol, and AVAX. Those are longs we took a couple of days ago. So I'm not trying to be a complete contradiction telling you to just short your shirt off because we're seeing this CME gap getting filled. Things could change, but between now and then, it seems pretty likely that we're going to see the price action potentially reverse itself. Now let's talk about this here, because we don't want to be blindly just considering a short position going this weekend. Once more, statistics are exactly that. They are sometimes made up on the spot. Granted, the numbers I've given you so far are accurate. We have seen 9 out of 10 weekends been red so far. But I want you to note that we got to go into this with an open mind and not just be like blindly bearish or bullish in whichever regard, right? So locally here, and this kind of goes back from before, we can see a heavier concentration right about just above 86,000. That's that shelf of liquidation. We'll look at the CME gap here in a little bit, but you got to trust me on this. It's 86,000 right at the top, and that's kind of right there concurrent with that little area. So there's a lot of confluence there letting us know we come up to 86,000. There's a distinct chance we'll see the price action slow down its progression to the upside. That's essentially what I mean by that. Now, there's been a lot of extra shorts adding into this market here, which is increasing the odds of the price pushing higher. So there's definitely a possibility we see 90,000 too. You got to recognize that there's a lot of liquidation up there. But the heavy concentrations of liquidation is more like 96 or higher, so I think we're a long ways away from that. But as far as liquidation delta is concerned, this is why you don't just short right now because we're overextended or we swept the local liquidation. We can see that open interest is kind of letting us know, this is liquidation delta. It's telling us that more people are taking longs versus shorts. In fact, we have $6 billion more in liquidation delta than we do shorts. Basically telling us that most people are heavy on longs, which makes sense seeing that going into a weekend. I've seen this quite a few times so far this year where we have a nice strong green day on Friday and the weekend is a disaster, okay? Now, a lot of times it'll happen Sunday morning / Sunday evening. So oftentimes when traditional markets traditional futures are opening in the afternoon on Fridays or Sundays, and then either Asian market opens on a late Sunday evening, depending on where you're living. Let's take a look at liquidation, this is open interest, and what we're looking at here is just kind of heavy concentrations. We can see a lot of support below the price action, okay? So this is a good sign overall, letting us know we do have support there. So once more, considering short or considering long, no matter how you look at it, you got to recognize there's a lot of buying pressure between 79 and 84,000. So anytime the price comes down, they're adding to their position, whomever they are. So I think low 80,000 is still a good price point for spot. I've added to my position quite a lot in that range. Okay, so just keep in mind from a spot perspective, it's a good consideration. When I say don't take a long, if I ever were to, you got to recognize I'm mostly referring to liquidation associated with leverage trades, right? So if you're going to take a long on leverage, you want to be kind of careful at this point. I do think we have good momentum, the decent amount of volume, while volume is tapering off. Overall, it's normal to see this leading into a Friday. To further that, though, we're still under 50 on the RSI. MACD is converging here and stochastic swinging up. So we got a momentum standpoint here letting us know that we're shifting gears. And there's a decent chance we do see the price continue further higher because of that as well. When we take a look at the 4-hour time frame, we want to talk about this here and understand that we are above the 20-day and now the 50-day SMA. It's a pretty big deal. Getting above the 50 is a big stepping stone, if you will, kind of letting us know that we're back on track tentatively. And I want to emphasize the word tentative because it's not official by any stretch that we're broken bullish, but that's a very strong start. That's usually what I like to look for to consider a long position. I also like to look for being over 50 on the RSI, being above our SMA on the RSI, as well as the money flow index being close, which it is. So these are all generally favorable signs. Okay, so the 4-hour time frame is exuding some good behavior, letting us know that further upside is probable. So once more, I just got to reinforce this here. Just because I'm considering a short in the 86 to 87,000 range doesn't mean you should just do that. And also, it doesn't mean I'm just going to jump into that trade in the blind right now. Okay, I'm going to wait until I'm awake, I'm alert, I've reevaluated things, and see if it's worthwhile at that point. Okay. And I think if we have low volume this weekend, the volume continues to taper off as it usually does, we're more likely than not going to see somewhat of a sell-off. But for right now, the key takeaway here is that if this high amount of volume, you see this amount of volume here, you don't short into that. You want to wait for the volume to start to taper off, price action goes sideways, and essentially consider a short at that point. But for right now, we are above this key level resistance, this $84,000 mark. So just know that in general, the standard procedure here is to take a long at 84,000. That's generally what you'd want to do in a situation like this. And that is actually a beneficial situation overall because statistically the likelihood of the price going higher is greater. There's a lot of control here based on volume between 82 and 83,000. So that reinforces support. So hypothetically the price pulls back, you could realistically take a long between 83 and 84,000 and have a lot of success, or a statistical likelihood of further success. But once more, just kind of keep this in mind, keep it in the back of your head. Once volume starts to go down and the price goes sideways over the weekend, there's a good chance we will see some altcoins pump this weekend. But for the most part, the bill comes due at some point. And lately, we've noticed just a very significant likelihood that weekends are going to be profit-taking time frames after we see these FOMOs in on Fridays and Saturdays. Okay, so just recognize that. So between now and maybe just say tomorrow evening, Saturday night, you're probably in good shape to consider longs. It's a much more beneficial situation to consider. So anyways, I know it sounds like a complete contradiction, but if you watched all the way through, you'd recognize that there's always little caveats in trading. I'm going to update our playout chart here in our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord, just so you can kind of see it there. I'll go ahead and post that. That's available here for you. And then, of course, make sure that if you're wanting to become part of our community, you need to just recognize that we do have some signals guide that you need to kind of follow that are more specific. I have an auto trading recommendation there. You need to follow that, but the benefits here are still pretty good. Even though we had a little bit of a red day here so far, the average profit is pretty high on a $1,000 portfolio. Okay, so it's a pretty good situation there. All right, folks, that's all we got here for you. Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. I'll look forward to working with you in the future. Have yourself a great rest of your day. Be safe out there. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.